All right, I'll go ahead and share my screen. Right, everyone tuning in via YouTube, welcome. We're thrilled to have you. Marissa and Joe, just give me a thumbs up. Can you see my slides?
All good.
Great. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, good morning. Welcome. Welcome, Kelly, David, Dolores, Georgina. Good to see you, Georgina. Casey, Joan, you, Vicky. Good to see you, Vicky. Go ahead and put in the chat where you're tuning in from in the world. It's always great to see where everyone is tuning in from on these Friday sessions. Awesome, Silicon Valley, Dallas, Minnesota, Washington.
Yeah, David, there we go. Represent New Jersey. All right.
Love it. Santa Cruz, I love Santa Cruz. Awesome, welcome, welcome. Bronx, New York, hi, Sophia. Buenos Aires, hi, Frederico, good to see you. And everyone on YouTube, go ahead and put where you're tuning in from in the chat as well. We'd love to see where you're coming from. Lena, good to see you back. Hi. All right, we have about a minute. So if you need to grab coffee, water, oatmeal, an eggs Benedict, I don't know, whatever you need.
Forever.
Every morning, it's my every morning breakfast. I don't get tired of it. Maybe that makes me boring.
It's so versatile though. You can put anything in it.
Right? It's true. It's true. It's true.
Don't worry, Sophia. I'm glad that it worked for you. Sophia is one of my YouTube watchers as well. So glad to have you back.
Awesome. All right. Well, it is 8:30, so we will go ahead and kick it off. Everyone, my name is Carly. I am our Director of Community here at LearnIt. Thrilled to be here with you. And with me, I also have the wonderful Marissa Ruiz, who's our community coordinator, and Joe Patty, who will be leading us through this workshop this Friday on visualizing data with Power BI. So thank you so much, everyone, for being here. We're thrilled to have you. For those of you that are new to this program, I want to just provide you with a little bit of context around LearnIt. We are a learning and development organization based out of San Francisco, California, but we also have a hybrid team or a distributed team all over the US. And we work to help people and teams at large and organizations at large really develop the skills needed to thrive in today's workplace and also adapt our skills and grow our skills to thrive in this ever-changing economy and world that we're all living in. So thank you so much for being here. And again, these sessions are specifically part of a weekly community series that we host. We host these events and all of our community programming is based on a monthly theme. So this month we're focusing on Excel power users. So if you've been following along along week over week. Our goal is to help you become an Excel power user by the end of week 4, by the end of September. And all of these sessions are led by subject matter experts, our internal experts like Joe, and also guest speakers who we bring in, and thought leaders from really around the world. And just so you know too, these sessions are recorded. This session will be recorded and it will be available in our community space called Offsite. After this session, we will go ahead and share a link to that. If you're not already a member of that community, we would love to have you join. It's completely free. And also just a couple more housekeeping items. We do encourage you to use the chat. We have muted everyone just to keep the sound quality high. But again, Marissa and I will be capturing questions throughout the chat to pose to Joe throughout the session. And we'll also be having a separate question section and offsite after this session as well. So more details to come on that. But for now, I really want to introduce all of you to Joe. If you haven't met him already, Joe is an expert in business applications, so the entire Office 365 suite, and also in data analysis and a lot of tools we use to visualize data, such as Power BI. Joe is also an educator. He's an instructional program designer and a project manager. So Joe designs and leads some of our largest technology adoption programs for our clients worldwide, and designs and facilitates those programs. So we're in really good hands with Joe today. And he's also a dear friend, a Jersey native, and Joe and I started at Learn It at the same time together 2.5 years ago. So it's just a pleasure to work with Joe, and thanks so much for being here.
Thanks so much, Carly. I appreciate it. Welcome, everyone. Super excited to be here. It's Friday, one of my favorite days, because then we have a full weekend to relax, right? And maybe it's payday, maybe it's not, but we're going to have a fun time anyway because we're upskilling, right? What better way to spend a Friday than to really just take some knowledge that I have, give it to you so that you can just keep going, right? Just that's what it's all about, learning new things and then just keep going. So with that said, today we're going to have some fun with Power BI. It's one of my favorite applications out there in Microsoft because we take this data, just a bunch of raw data that we could stare at all day and we won't be able to really do much with it. Yeah, we could maybe do some analytics, maybe analyze it in a certain way. But we are human beings. We're all visual, right? That's why we have computers to compute things for us. Instead, what we can do with Power BI is take that information, transform it, and then plug it into Power BI where we can visualize it with beautiful charts. We can do graphs, filters, cards with information, and we can create these wonderful dashboards that everyone can utilize. So with that said, what I'm going to do is share my screen. And let us do this. I want to have some fun here. So what I decided to do was take this payroll information sheet that I have here, and I created a copy for you. The reason why is because if you feel like following along with me, I want you to be able to. If you're like, Joe, I like to take notes, that's okay too. But what I'll do is I will put it into the chat. All right. And let's see here. I will put the link right into the chat box for you. I want to be able to upload this to my OneDrive. So if you've never used OneDrive before, no worries at all. OneDrive is just an amazing way to share information on a platform. So I'm going to upload my file here. And we're going to use payroll information for today. It's going to be great. There's so much information that we'll have out of this. And then let me share it. And I'm going to copy the link for all of you. And there it is right in the chat box. So give that link a click. You can save it onto your desktop. What I'll be doing is I will be utilizing the same exact file. And this is what it looks like. So here what we have is some simplistic data, nothing too crazy here. We have company payroll information. We have a numbering system so that we have some sort of order. We have the first name, the last name. We have the employee numbers, the divisions, the department they're in, when they were hired. just a bunch of information that we need to analyze. Now, staring at this information, if I go through and I look at this is a lot to take in. Look at how much data I have here, about 102 rows of data. And I don't want to just sit here and stare at things. I want to actually answer questions regarding this data. And that's what Power BI does. It allows us to visualize the data so we can quickly answer the questions instead of coming in here and saying, well, how many salespeople do I have? How many people in development do I have? How many people in Connecticut do I have? Well, no, we don't have to worry about that with a visualization. So the first thing we have to do is we have to use what's known as ETL, right? And I just want to put this out here. When dealing with data and putting it into Power BI, when we take data from different data sources, which today we're going to take it from Excel, we need to be sure that the data is coming in correctly. Because if the data is not coming in correctly, what will happen is if we just immediately load it into Power BI, it's not going to work for us. For instance, if I pull information into Power BI using Excel, sometimes it will include some rows or columns in there that will just have no data in there, and it's going to be blank, which means, well, we're not going to be able to really calculate or visualize anything the right way. So the first option is to extract the data. Once we extract the data, we then need to make sure that it works for our Power BI. So we're going to transform the data. Okay, so we extract the data, transform the data. And then after we transform the data, we're then going to load it into Power BI. So if you ever hear the term ETL, this is what it's regarding: extracting, transforming, and then loading. Now, what we're going to do right now is load the data into Power BI, but I just want to show you that there are going to be a couple of things in this data set that come over we need to fix. For instance, there might be some null values here, the headers might get pushed, there's a bunch of stuff that could happen. So I'm going to exit out of Excel. I'm going to open up Power BI, which is a free desktop application. So if you don't have Power BI for the desktop, you are more than welcome to go search for Power BI desktop download, and it will actually save it straight to your desktop, and there's no need to purchase anything. So as of right now, Power BI is free. Now, once you open up, you will see here that it starts off with this nice little startup page, which I like. I personally like it. If you wanted to, you can use it, or you can just simply say, stop showing the screen down here. But I like it because what I can do is I can see what's new. I can see if there's any blogs or tutorials. I even get a couple of demos, right? Some tutorials on getting started with Power BI, or building a report, or querying some sort of concept, or uploading a report. So these are really helpful. But I'm just going to click the X on it. Now, welcome to Power BI. If you've never been in here before, this is what the interface looks like. It's a Microsoft product, so of course we have our ribbon here. And in our ribbon, we have all of the ways to get data. We have our different tabs up here, our command groups, and our commands. We also have 3 different sections here, which we'll get into. We have our data section, which that's where we're going to have our actual data. We have our tables. We have our data modeling. So the first section that you start off in is the report section. The section after that is what's known as the data section. And then the third section is known as the model section, where we can model information and combine different sources together, which we may do if we have time later on today. So we have our report section, our data section, and then our model section. And if you go into each section, you'll see different interviews right there. So what I want to do at this moment is I want to actually grab some data. And that's the first thing it's going to ask you to do. It's going to say, Joe, we need data from somewhere. And the best part about it is that you can grab data from anywhere. So you can grab data from Excel, from Dataverse, from SQL Server, from Azure, from Salesforce, and it's ever expanding. So they keep adding new data sources. And if you wanted to, you could click on Get Data and just simply click on More. And you will see all the different places that you have data. Okay, like look at this, Parquet. We have SharePoint folders. Some of these you might say, whoa, Joe, I actually have this. My company has this. Dynamic 365, Microsoft Exchange, our Outlook information. So many, GitHub. And then, of course, you'll see a couple of the betas, right? And they're always, as I said, adding new ones. Like this one's great, SurveyMonkey. So we can take anything from SurveyMonkey that we get in, and we can automatically visualize that data. Super amazing. But today we're going to keep it simple. We're going to be utilizing Excel. So in Excel, we can quickly pull this information 3 ways. We can either just pull it right here by clicking on Import Data from Excel. We can click here where it says Excel Workbook, or we could click on Get Data and choose Excel. All right, 3 ways to do the same thing. You'll notice Microsoft does that a lot. Okay, so I'm going to click on any of these 3 ways, and if you're following along, you're more than welcome to as well. And the first thing that I want to do is go get that file. So I put mine on my desktop, and I'll click Open. All right. So now we have this navigator where it's connecting to that source of data. So right now it's connected to that Excel file, and it's asking me, well, Joe, you have 2 sheets in that Excel file. You have a Canada sheet, you have a payroll sheet. Which one do you want to actually use? So for me, I want to use the payroll sheet because the Canada sheet, this is information I don't really need. So I won't check mark that. So if you have multiple sheets in a workbook, you can choose exactly which sheet you want, which for us is this payroll sheet. Now, if you remember the ETL that I was talking about, this is that first step. This is the extraction. This is where we extract the data into Power BI. The problem is that if I click load, right? If I skip transformation, and you'll see it at the bottom here, transform and load. If I just click on load, you will notice that in my data right now, I do have a couple of things that are wrong. I have a couple of null values. Now, if you don't know what a null value is, that's okay. It's simply a cell that has nothing in it. There's null, it's a blank cell. The problem with this is that when we create our visuals, it will include the blank information, and that can really mess up our visuals. So that's why we need to transform the data. Sometimes you won't need to. Sometimes you'll see your data come in, but I always make it a habit to click on transform data. Now, when you click on that, what it's going to do is it's going to pull it into what's known as Power Query. And this is a powerful tool that's not only in Power BI, but it's also in Excel. So if you see some things you like here and you're like, oh, I can use that, you're more than welcome to use it in Excel as well. So what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to click on the payroll. I'm going to make sure it's checkmarked there. And I'm going to choose transform data. Now, once I click on transform data, what I can then do is see my information in what's known as that Power Query editor. And once again, this is an Excel product. So Power Query editor does have the same thing. It has our ribbon here. We have our different tabs, all the different things we need to actually get this going. So the first thing I notice is that, well, we have a couple of null values here. So we're going to have to fix anywhere where there's null values. And these null values are going across my data. So I have to make sure I shape this data in a way that I can use it. And well, look at this. Columns 12, 13, 14, 15, it all has null data. I don't need any of that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take care of it. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select column 12. I know it's selected because then the header gets a yellow color and then it's all shadowed. Now, once I select column 12, I'll then go to column 13 by holding the control key on my keyboard, column 14, and then column 15 as well. So then I'm selecting all of them. Once you do that, you will see a button right above it where it says remove rows, remove columns. If you click on remove columns, boom, it does it, right? Removes those columns. The thing is that in Power Query, you have to think about what happens if you make a mistake, right? What happens if I deleted this gross pay column by accident? I'm going to do it. Oops. Well, there is no undo button, and you can't use Control Z, which I've tried doing 1,000 times. If I use Control Z, nothing happens. The thing is that when we're using Power Query, it's actually recording our steps. So you'll see here that the source connected, we went to that navigation where we picked the payroll sheet. It asked us to promote the headers. It changed the type of columns each one was. And then what we just did was remove columns. So even though you can't use undo or use Control Z, you can come over here and click that little X icon next to the step that you've applied, and that will reverse the step. So I'll click it. And now we get all of those columns back. So let's do it again. I'm going to click on column 12, hold the Control key, column 13, 14, and 15. Now I'll remove those columns. But now I got to look at other stuff. Like for instance, these two right here. We want to remove those two top rows. So once again, I'm just going to go to remove rows. And I'm going to remove the top rows. We can remove bottom rows, alternate rows. We can remove duplicated rows, remove blank rows, remove errors. But what we'll do is we will just remove the top two rows. And then it's going to say, well, Joe, how many do you want to remove from the top? 2. And I'll click OK. So awesome. Now we're fixing up our data, but still we need to make sure that we have no more null values. And I'm going to give you a little tip and trick for this. See, keep your eyes on this green bar because it actually does something. The green bar will tell you how much data you have, whether it's 100% or how many empty spots you have. And if you hover over that green bar right there, you will notice that I have 99% of the data in here, but 1% is empty. Now it will say, do you want to remove the empty, and give you that option right there? And you could click that, you're more than welcome to. But best practice is to make sure you look at these. So now when I scroll down to the bottom, I'll see, oof, I did have one hidden null. So it's really helpful for me, and that's what I always look at. So the first thing I'm going to do now is remove rows from the bottom. And there's only one of them, so I'll just put a 1 in there and click OK. All right, so now that green bar is telling me I have 100% valid data in there. It's looking great. There's one more thing I need to do though. See, when we pull our information into Power BI, it plugs it up, right? So for instance, all of this data will be plugged up in the header. All of this data will be plugged up in this header, and so on and so forth. The problem with this is right now, the headers are all messed up. Look, it says column 2. I want it to say first. It says column 3. I want it to say last. It says column 4. So what ended up happening was when we pulled our data into Power Query, it pushed our headers down. So I need to actually use my first row as the headers instead. How do I do this? Well, there's a button for it. Right here, it says use first row as headers. So I'm going to choose that button right there. Okay. Now, once I click on it, use first row as headers, it's going to promote my headers. And look how beautiful it came out. Number, first, last, employee number. So now all of this data will be plugged up into the headers, and I'll know exactly what I want and what information I'm going to be using. If you don't do this step, you will notice that once you go back into Power BI, instead it'll just say column 2, column 3, column 4, and you'll be like, what is that data though? Here, when we promote our headers, it's going to work perfectly. So what have we done so far? So far, we have extracted the data, we have transformed the data, and now we're going to load the data back into Power BI. So to do that, we're going to click on Close and Apply, which is found in that Home tab. And when I click it, it's going to apply that data, load it into Power BI, and now we're going to be able to utilize it to create these beautiful visuals. And we're going to create some fun ones today. So now that the information is in the system, how do we actually access it? How do we start building things? Well, you'll see two panes over here to the right. We have what's known as a visualization pane and a fields pane. Now, the visualization pane is where we can actually get those visuals. So that's where we can click what we want, whether we want a pie chart, a donut chart, just a normal stack column chart, area chart, funnel charts, anything you need. The fields, however, this is where the information is stored. Now, if you've ever used a pivot table before, it's very similar to that. There's no information on the actual pivot table until you start to click and drag the information into the pivot table. Same thing here. When we create a visual, it's going to be blank. And once we want to actually add things, we're going to use the fields to do so. Now, what I was saying about naming those first row as headers, that's important because if you click onto the payroll here, you will now see, look, all of our headers, benefits, date of hire, department, division, employee number, first, last. So this is the information that's really important for us because if we didn't name those headers, it would have came over just as column 2, column 3. We wouldn't know what it is. So really important. Now, for my payroll, what I'm deciding to do here is I'm going to decide to build a dashboard where it will display information that's really relative to what I'm trying to get out of this data. For instance, maybe I want to see, I don't know, how many employees I have per division. Maybe I want to see how many hours there are total for each department, right? That would be important information. So the first thing I'm going to do here to build my visual is I'm going to go to the visualizations pane, and I'm going to pick one of these visualizations. And if you just hover over it, it'll tell you exactly what it is. And today I'm going to use the clustered column chart. Give it a click. Now it's going to populate right onto my sheet here, as you can see. But the thing is that you're not going to be able to do anything with it because there's nothing in there at that moment, right? It's just a blank chart. There's nothing in there. But underneath the visualizations, what you will see here is that you have what's known as your different fields. And you'll notice if you hover over it, it'll say fields. You have your access field where you're going to take data from this and put it into your access, legends, values, small multiples, tooltips. So we're not going to use all of them. You don't have to use all of them. There's no need to. For instance, right now, all I want is I just want to see how many people work in each division. So I'm going to take division and click and drag it. We're going to click and drag to axes. Okay, so we've already got the axes now, which is all of the divisions. Now we have to figure out the value. So if I want to count my employees, like let's say I want to count how many employees I have per division. Well, what I would need to do is figure out which one am I going to use. And there's quite a few I could use the employee number, right? Because the amount of employee numbers there are going to be the amount of employees I have. I can use first name, right? So the amount of people that I have in the first name column, that will give me my total. Or last name, I can do that as well. Count how many people I have in that last name column. But to just keep it nice and sweet here, I'm going to use employee number and click and drag that into the values. Now it's important to note that you'll see here this little mathematical sign. This means that there's a number associated with that column. So in the number column, there's numbers in there. In the hours column, there's numbers in there. Hourly rate, same thing. Gross pay, same thing. If there's no number, that means it's a text or a date. And there's the little date icon. So I know employee number is just text, so it's going to automatically count it because it's not a number. See, count of employee number. And look what we have right over here now. We have a beautiful little chart that tells me Connecticut has 30 employees, Maine has 28, Vermont has 25, and New Hampshire has 15, all right? Super amazing. So we have this information here. We can use it. We can visualize it. If my boss asks me real quick, hey, Joe, who has the most employees? I will say Connecticut quickly, instantly, because I'm visualizing it. If I was looking at that other sheet, right, if I go into my table and my boss said to me, hey, Joe, how many employees are in Connecticut? Yeah, I'm not going to have an answer. I can't just do that quickly. That's why we like to visualize the data. Okay, so let's keep going with this because this is just only one visual. We can add so many more here. We can even, if we wanted to, change up this visualization. For instance, right now, by default, it comes over with this really nice blue color. I like the color blue. You might be saying, Joe, I don't want the color blue. My company logo is red. Why can't we use red instead, right? You can. You can actually click on the visualization, and right next to where we put those fields in for division and the count of employee numbers, we can actually format it, which means change the appearance of it. Okay, so I'm going to click on format. Now, when you're formatting, I want you to really know something. It's going to be intimidating. It is. It was intimidating for me when I first started this. I was like, what affects what? Like right here, I'm looking and I'm like, what is the data colors? What's that even mean? What's a data label? Well, if you just turn it on or off, I can now see, oh, look at that. When I turn it on, there are now little labels right up top. If I turn it off, there's none. So that's how I got started. So I want you to experiment. I want you to have fun with this. This application is so much fun. It's not meant to be like, oh, I'm super nervous or frustrated. Come in and play around with it. For instance, I do want data labels. Wouldn't it be cool if it just told me the number 15 right here in the middle? All the numbers here, so I didn't have to hover over. Well, we can do that with the data labels. Now, when you click into something like data labels, you're going to click that little caret, and it's going to give you all the options for them. So for instance, when I click that little drop down and I turn them on, I can now choose where I want them. For instance, I don't want them automatically positioned. I want them in the center. Look, now they're in the center. I love that. I can keep going through. What are the data colors? What's that do? Oh, well, I see blue and that's blue. Okay, I know exactly what the data colors are now. Now I can say, ooh, I want that red color and choose red. All right, so right now it says count of employee by division. I want to change that title up. I don't like it. I want to add it like in the middle here. So I'm going to look through. Ooh, I see there's a title on. There it is. So I can change that title and I could say something like total employees per division. I don't like it over here on the left. So what I want to do is I just want to put it towards the center here. So I'm going to align it in the middle. I'm going to make it a little bigger, the text size. And I love the way this is coming out. Looks perfect. And you don't have to follow me. If you're following along right now and you're like, Joe, I don't like the color red, don't use it. Really just play around with this. Have some fun. And click into each one, like the plot area. I can add an image to the plot area right in the middle here. Let's add a border. If I click away from it, there's no border. I like borders. So if you click on it and you go to your formatting, you can add some borders to this, turn them on. Maybe I want the borders to be, yeah, we'll keep it a black color and I'll make it rounded instead of it being a rectangle. I love the way that looks. And then I can click and drag this wherever I want on my sheet. There we go. So that's already looking great. It looks a lot better than it did when we just first started with the default. But now I want to add more information. Like for instance, maybe I want to add, let's do, ooh, I have an idea. We'll have some fun with this one. I'm going to do a gauge to tell me just how many hours that I have. So I'm going to choose the gauge icon. Now it's important to note something, and I've done this 1,000 times. That's why I give you these little tips, because I don't want you to feel like, what am I doing wrong? For instance, if I click on this visual right here, And I have it selected. I know it's selected because of these sizing brackets right here. They'll be all around. That's how you know you have a visual selected. If you have it selected and you go to choose a different visual, it will actually apply it to that one. So watch. And I'm like, oh no, that's not what I wanted. I just wanted to add a gauge. If you do that by accident, you could always just go back to clustered column chart and it'll bring you back your data. In order to add another one, click away from it, make sure it's not selected. And then you can click the gauge. Okay. Now that I have this gauge, there's nothing in there. And all I simply want to do is figure out how many hours total do I have. So to do that, the first thing I'm going to do is grab the hours. You'll see we have an hours field here. And I'm going to take that hours field and put it in the value. And there it is. Looks great. The problem is I don't like the way it looks. Like for instance, I really don't like how high it is. Like I want a smaller number for the maximum. I don't like how it's 3.51. I like it to look like this. I want it to like say something like 3,516 or whatever that number is. I don't want it to just be a 3.51. Once again, I'm going for a theme, so I don't want it to be blue. So after you do this, what you can then do is just simply go over to formatting and choose what you want formatted. And the first thing I'm going to do is go to general and take a look. What's over here? Okay, just talking about the size and the position of this. So I don't need anything in general. I'm going to go to gauge axes. Look at this. Okay, so it's already solving my first problem, which is what is the maximum? I want the maximum to be like close. So I can do, let's do 4,200. Look at that. It automatically changes that maximum. So we're good. Next up, I'm going to keep going. Data color. I don't like that blue. Remember, so what I want to do is change it to the red that I'm using, just so we're staying consistent. Data labels, what are those? If you don't know what it is, turn it off. Okay, I know exactly what my data labels are now. When I click them on or off, it's affecting these numbers right here. So these are my data labels, and I want to fix them up. Remember, I don't like the 4.20K. I want it to be full numbers. So now that I know what those data labels are, I can click the little caret and get into more options. So I will say something like, okay, display unit is auto. I don't want that. I want it to be none. Okay, it looks good, but I don't want the decimal places. So value decimal places, I'll put 0. I want them to be a little bigger. They're kind of small. So the text size, I'm going to increase them. And look, it's increasing them. So we're already doing amazing. We're just playing around with the system, figuring out what affects what. Now, I want to change that middle number right here, but I don't know what it is. So guess what I'm going to do? Turn things off and on. Oh, there it is. So this is known as the callout value. And the more you do this, the more you turn things on and off, the more you start remembering them. And then you'll know exactly that's a callout value for next time. Play around with this. I can't really stress enough how amazing it will be. Just that there's no right or wrongs in this. You're creating a dashboard and just have fun. So I'm going to go to the callout value and I'm going to change that display again to none. I don't need the units. I mean, I know there's 50, 0.5, half of it there, but I don't want the units. So I'll pick 0. And maybe, you know what? I want the color of this to be blue. I can do that. See? I also want the title. So I'm going to look for a title to say total hours in the middle. So I'll find title. I'll put total hours. Once again, I want it in the middle. So I'll look for alignment. I'll make it really big font. And there we go. I now have my title. And you can click into each of these And then I close them out. The reason I close them out is so that I don't like have a huge list here that I have to scroll through. So every time I do something, you'll notice I close it out. It's just a habit I have. It's a good habit to get into as well. Border, I'm going to turn on borders. And let's round them about. Perfect. Okay. So this is looking good. I'm going to make it a little smaller here so that it fits over here. Okay, I'll make this one a little smaller as well. We're starting to create an awesome dashboard. How awesome is this? That looks great. Okay, so now we have two things. We have the total hours. We're reaching our total. That looks great. And we have the total employees per division. Now there's tons more that we can do here. We can add certain like data cards. Maybe for instance, what I want to do is I want to create, let's say this. I want to create a couple of cards here that will tell me the average hours that are worked, the minimum hours that are worked, and the, let's do maximum hours that are worked. And then the total amount of employees. That's what I'm thinking, like not per division, but just in general. So in order to display just those key pieces of information, we're going to use what's known as cards. And it's right next to where we just were with the gauge. You'll see the cards. Now, when you click on a card, once again, it comes empty. And we're just going to simply put what we want in there. And what I want is I want the average hours. So in order to do this, I'm going to grab hours and I'm going to click and drag this into the one field here. And look at that, it gives me the total hours. Now, of course, it comes over once again in a way that I don't like. So now we know what to do. We're going to format it. Format means change the appearance. And to do that, once you have it selected, you're going to come over here and click on format. And now we can go and remember, play around with this. I want to know, what is this middle number? Ooh, you know what? It might be the data. It is the data label because I see the display units. So now I can choose none. I'll do 0 decimal places because I don't like that. I also don't like how it says HRS. Someone might not know what that means. So I want to turn that off. That's the category. When I turn it off, it disappears. And I'm going to turn on a title. There is no title on this card, so I'll turn it on. This card will be average hours, just like that. And you know what? We're going to change it up. I'm going to put it in the middle again, increase the font size. And this time I'm going to choose red as the actual title color. And for that category here, for that data label, I'm going to make it blue because we're keeping a theme here. And now I have my first little card. The problem is that right now it's not displaying the average hours. It's displaying the total hours. So how do I change that? Well, when you click on it, what does it say here? Well, right now it says if you hover over the sum of the hours. So when you automatically put the hours into the field here, it sums it up. Now you'll notice there is this little caret, and if you click on it, we can do so much more. If I click on the caret, I can do the sum, the average, the min, the max, the count. How awesome is that? I'm going to choose average. And there we go. Now I have the average hours, which it's displaying 36. Now I probably want a border on this. I don't know why. I like borders. I think it makes it look nice, but it's totally up to you if you want to add a border. And that looks good. Okay, so now I'm going to give you another little tip. All right, we've just done a bunch of editing here. We've edited the title. We've changed the way that the display is. We've changed the color of the display, the color of the title, added borders to this. And you're going to have to do all the same things again if you want to do it again for the next one. So instead, what I want to do is I'm going to take this card and I'm going to copy and paste it. So I'm going to use Control C to copy and Control V to paste it. And I'm going to push it over here. I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to use Control V, and I'm going to put this one over here. I might make it a little smaller. Let's do this. And I'll do another one, Control V, and that one's going to go over here, right? So there we go. We'll just do that. Now I have 4 of them. I obviously don't want 4 of the same information, but the reason I did this was because if you think about it, why do I want to go through all of that editing, all of those changes, when all I need to do is come here now, change what it is. Instead of I want average of hours, I can click the drop down, click on minimum, and then all I need to do now is change the title to say min. I can go into this one now, do the same thing. Change the title. I want the max here. I can click into the fields and do maximum. Now for the average hours, I actually want something completely different. I want a count of the employees, like a total count. In order to do this, I'm going to have to exit this piece. So right where we've been clicking the drop down, you'll notice an X. And if you want to remove information from a card or a visual, you click that little X. Now I can put in a count of the employee number. But when you put it in there, it's going to show me the first employee number on our list of data. You'll see it says AA02. I don't want that, so I'll click the drop down and choose count. And now I know I have 98 employees. Okay, so I have now the average hours, the minimum hours, the maximum hours, the total count of employees, which we want to make sure we change this title. So I'll do total employees. There we go. So what I want to do now is I'm just going to move them over, make them look pretty. I'll do it like this. Or what we could have done, instead of just doing that, if they're all over the map, you could just select each one. So you could click average hours, hold the control key, min hours, max, total. And remember, those brackets mean that you have them selected. So when you hold the control key and you select all 4 of them, what you can now do is go up to the Format tab. And inside of the Format tab, we can use something called Align, where we can align these beautifully. So I'm going to click the drop down, and I'm going to do, let's do Align Middle. Ooh, that looked nice. And distribute horizontally. Okay. Beautiful. So it looks great now. Now, of course, you can change these up any way that you want. So, I mean, I just simply want them a little further down. But using those alignments are really nice. Now, I'm also going to remove the borders. I decided that the borders just aren't looking good for me. That looks great. So now we don't have to worry about the borders like overlapping, right? So Georgina, great question. I've taken a look at the chat as well. What's the difference between count and count? Let's take a look right here. Are you talking about over here where it says count and distinct? That's a great question. So count, what it does is it counts the overall employees, right? What a distinct count does is it counts all the unique values. So for instance, if I had a list here and it was like Joe, Carly, and then Marissa, right? We have 2 Joes. Well, what it would be is if I did a count, it would say 4. But if I do a distinct count, it'll be 3. And sometimes we want a distinct count in certain scenarios. But yeah, great question. For the rounded rectangle, did you adjust the radius? Yes, Sahana, yes, I did. If you want the rounded in the border, I just maximize the radius to full max. I like it. I don't know. I like that style. Some people are like, I just like the square. I like it rounded. I don't know. Can we save it to the desktop? Yes, Michael, we can. We can either save this to the desktop, or what we could have done is we could publish it as well, so that, or share it with our colleagues. Now, before we're done here, I do want to show you just two more things before we wrap up. I want to show you how we can add, first off, a title to the overall dashboard. And then I want to show you how we can add slicers, which will make this entirely interactive. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do to add a title is, if you come to visualizations, you're not going to find it. I know it's horrible. You won't find it anywhere. I've searched thousands of times. Where the title is if you go to Home tab and you go to Insert Command Group, you will see the text box. This is where you can take that text box and put it right in. And I'm going to click on text box, and I'm going to type in there, Joe's Fun Dashboard. And we can adjust it. We have all of the different formatting tools here. I'll bold it, underline it, put it in the middle, make it 36 font, and change the color to red. Now I will make it a little bigger, of course. And let's put it in the middle. There we go. You know what? There's a lot of red on the page. Let's make this blue. Okay, that makes it look a lot nicer. All right, perfect. Audrey, do the values change when the original data change? So yes, it is automatically connected, but you have to press this button over here. You have to refresh the data. So make sure you do refresh that data by clicking refresh right here. Get the latest data. All right, so if you make any changes to the original data, click that refresh button, and that's where you'll see that change. David, if you share this with a colleague, do they need to have Power BI Desktop installed on their device? So great question. If you share it with a colleague, no, they can open it up in a web browser, David. Great question. Which is nice, right? And you know what? For today, we're going to have some fun. I'm going to publish this. I don't want any of you publishing this, if you even have access to publish. The reason being is because you're going to publish it to your company's site, and you don't want to do that. So skip that part. When I do the publishing, don't worry. And then I'm going to give you all the link to it, so you can actually go in there and see what I built today. All right, we'll have fun. John, can you resize all the cards at the same time? If you select them all, right? If I'm selecting them all by holding the control key and I do a little bit of sizing, you'll see it doesn't work that way. So no, that's why I said before, if you create one, you would then just copy that format by using Control C, Control V, and do it that way. But yeah, great question. Yeah, that's why, John, I did the Control C, Control V to make sure they're the same size. Yeah. Can we add a second visual to the first one? Fatev, what do you mean by that? Let me know, kind of push me a little more. What's the main difference between Power BI and using pivot tables / charts? Power BI is more powerful, right? This is where we can add data automatically. This is where we can add these visuals quickly. It's a lot easier to add these visuals. Pivot table is actually in here as a visual. A chart, all the charts are here for you. What this allows you to do is embed this entire dashboard on a website. You can put it towards a link. You can embed it into a SharePoint site. So it's a lot more versatile in other integrations than just the simple pivot table or chart. Great question. So let's do one more thing here. I want to just add one more thing that I think will be really amazing. I want to add what's known as a slicer. Now, some of you might know what a slicer is. You might have used it in Excel, which it's very, very powerful in Excel for tables and pivot tables. A slicer is simply a filter, a button filter. So when you click on it, it interacts with all the rest of these visualizations. Now, to add one, you can go to, let's say, for instance, you want to add the slicer. I'm going to go right here. It's next to the table. And for the slicer, we're going to do department. So I'm going to take department and put it into the field. And I'll put my slicer. I like it over here. I don't know why. And I want to add, once again, a border to it. And look at that. So what's it actually do though? What's it do? Well, the first thing I'm going to do is, let's say I click on research. I just want to see the research department information. How cool is that? How many people do we have total in research? 25. How many hours do they work total? Total 876. How many employees are in research in Connecticut? 10. 5, 5, and 5. How awesome is that? We now have an interactive dashboard. Okay. So Georgina, can you show an example using quarters and year on the axis? Yes, and I think I know why you're asking that, Georgina. You're probably going through a situation where you add information, right? You add information on the spreadsheet for quarters or for year, and they're not in order, or maybe you add days of the week and they're not in order. Well, there's a way to overpower that, and if you want, for one of the sessions, I could go over how to like configure that. So for this one, we won't get too far into it, but I will show you just a quick date of hire. So when we're dealing with, let's say we wanted to see how many employees for each quarter that we've hired, right? I'm going to do that with a clustered column chart. And then I'm going to put in the date of hire as the axis, and I'm going to put the employee count as the value. Now, the problem is right now it's showing me everything. It's saying, okay, we're showing you the year, the quarter, the month, and the day. And I'm like, I don't want that. I just want the quarter. So if you just click the X, you'll be able to see then the information from the quarter, right? Because I don't necessarily want just year or anything. I just want the quarters. And then look, it gives you how many per quarter. If you're like, oh, no, I don't, I want the year. Well, then exit out of this, put it back in, and deselect everything but the year. Just like that. If you want the year and the quarter, well, that's going to be a little different. We're going to actually have to get into something more advanced, which is known as a DAX expression. And what a DAX expression will do is we can combine it together using that DAX expression, which I typically will just use like an equals, and I'll select the year. I'll add an and sign, and then I'll select the quarter, or maybe I'll even add a slash there, and then I can deliver that data. So if you're wondering like how to do both of that, yeah, that's how you would. So great question. Mary, how can we interact? It's not that bad, Georgina. I promise you, it's not too bad. How can we interact several dashboards and create storytelling? So right down here, you'll notice I'm only on a page 1. I can add more pages. I can add a page 2, page 3, page 4. So if I wanted to really get into more, I can click into the plus symbol and add more. And I'll just delete that page. Kim, I didn't forget you. I see. I found out that you have to publish to your workspace and then publish the app. Is there an easier way to publish the app? It's not clear. I fumbled every time. So yeah, when you publish, I know it sounds like it's automatically publishing, but it's not. It's publishing to your workspace, and then once you're in your workspace, you have to then actually publish it somewhere. So actually, we have 5 minutes left. Let me show you how to do this. So we have this great dashboard here now. Okay, just a very simple dashboard. We're going to click into publish. And I don't want you doing this. Remember, don't publish this to your company site or anything. I'm going to save it. It's going to ask me where to save. I'll save it to my desktop. I'll call it Joe's Fun, Amazing, Crazy, Awesome. I ran out of words. Dashboard. Okay, so now it's going to publish it to my workspace. Okay, because I'm going to select my workspace and I'm going to click select. It's going to say, okay, we're publishing. It'll then say succeed when it succeeds. Success. I'm going to say got it. Now, what I will do is I'm going to go over to my online version of the application. So office.com. You sign in using your credentials for like Outlook, right? So I'm going to just simply now go to my online version of Power BI. If you don't see it in this list, you could click on more apps or all apps, and you'll see it here. Now, once I'm there, I'm actually going to access what we just created by going to my workspace, because that's where I just posted it, my workspace. Okay. Now in my workspace, let's find the one I just did. What's today? 9/17. There it is. Joe's Fun, Amazing, Crazy, Awesome Dashboard. And I'm going to give it a click. It's going to open it up. Once you open it up in your workspace, now what we can do is export it to many places. I can chat it in Teams. I can share it. I can export it to a PowerPoint or a PDF or analyze in Excel. I can also, if I go to File, I can embed this report in a SharePoint site, a website or a portal, or publish it, truly publish it to the web. So I know it sounds like you're publishing twice. First, you have to publish to my workspace, then you have to come in here and publish to the web. Now be careful about doing this because this is public. So anyone that has the link can see it, which I'm going to show you right now because you're all going to have access to it. Now I can send the link. I'm going to copy it. And I want all of you on this call right now to give it a click. All right, and tell me what it looks like. Now, if you click the link, it's going to open you up in a web browser and everything's going to work perfectly. All right, now it's on a nice big screen. This is what it looks like. And try using the slicers. And how cool is that, right? Now you have access to it, right? With that said, I really hope you had an amazing time here. If you really want to get into like more Power BI, there's so much more. What we just did is really just scratching the surface of what you can do. You can really get into just so much. Georgina, no, you can't control anyone that can see it on that side because you're publishing it publicly. But if you put it like on a SharePoint site or if you put it embedded in a website, yes, then you have more options there. So thanks so much, everyone. I really appreciate you being here. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. We have about a minute left. Georgina, yes, you can put it into Teams. It's integration. Yes, you can use slicers within Power BI as well.
Amazing, Joe. Thank you so much for that awesome session. Everyone, if you enjoyed today's session, give us a little reaction in the chat. We'd love to see like your love and your gratitude for Joe if you enjoyed the session. Awesome. Thanks so much, everyone. I just wanted to offer a couple opportunities. First, I'm going to just post the link in Offsite where the recording and the practice file is actually already live. So you can go there to that link. I'll post it again in just a moment. Awesome. Thanks, everyone, for all your words here. And also, if you're interested in taking and diving deeper into not just revisiting this recording and the practice files we went over today, but if you're interested in diving deeper into Excel and Power BI as a tool, we do have some full-length workshops coming up. And our community members get a discount on that. If you're already a LearnIt client, of course, reach out to me for any questions. You can reach out to your learning strategist. But we want to help you keep learning and diving deeper. So feel free to reach out to me, Marissa. We'd love to help guide you as well. But otherwise, we have tons of free programming in Offsite, which is our free online community. Again, the access to today's recording is already in there with Joe's practice file, so you can start doing this on your own time as well. And we also do Ask the Expert sessions every Wednesday morning. So Joe leads a lot of those. Faz, our other amazing instructors, lead those sessions. And you can bring any follow-up Power BI questions that you have to that session on Wednesday morning. So our next one will be this coming Wednesday on September 22nd. We encourage you to post your questions. You can ask questions after the session there. And there's other fun perks and things to be in there. But really encourage you to join our community of 4,000 people from across the world. So with that, we do have one more Friday session on Excel and data next week. It'll be around data-driven leadership, and we'll pull together all the tools we've learned about Excel and Power BI and talk about how we can start to use those insights to be better leaders. And everyone who's been following along, if you attend all 4 this month, you'll earn a badge of certification as well. So I know I just threw a lot at you. Marissa and I will put links in the chat, but I really want to thank all of you for being here and for your time on this Friday morning. We hope you have just an incredible weekend and get some time for yourself to relax.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks so much, everybody. I'll put the link to the post one more time. Thank you, Joe. That was awesome.
No worries, anytime. Yeah, take the 2-day class. It's so much fun. You'll learn everything from beginner to advanced in those 2 days and be making awesome dashboards.
Awesome. All right, everyone. Feel free to reach out to us if you have questions. Take care. Bye.